Hi, Riverside Family. I think you'll probably know from the notices that the IT wasn't great on Sunday morning. So I'm going to try and summarise a little bit of the sermon from Sunday morning for you. We were continuing our series, Back to Basics series, of looking at the foundations of what it means to be part of our Riverside family. And after Ruth's session the previous week, looking at belong, we are going to take a look at believe. So what does it mean to believe as part of our Riverside Church family? So yeah, that's what I'll be looking at for the next few minutes. For those of you that think this is going to be about a list of beliefs that you can kind of check yourself up on and think, yeah, I'm sorted, I'm fine, I believe the same as everybody else here, you might be a little bit disappointed in the next few minutes. But if you want to check out our beliefs, they are on the website. There's a number of statements there that cover the kind of high level beliefs of Riverside, but also of lots of other church and faith groups. So the challenge for me, I think, is that within each of those, there is a spectrum of belief. So if you take maybe one or two of those, for example, that God created the universe and still rules in absolute and ultimate authority, you know, there are people here within the Riverside family who would believe that maybe the earth was created in 7 days, literally. There may even be people who believe in flat earth. There may be people who believe in a young creation, so 6 to 10,000 years old. There may be people who believe that something instigated the birth of the universe 13 plus 14 billion years ago. It's still expanding and evolving, and kind of God's plan for humanity is just a small window within that wider picture of creation. So you can see there's lots of potential beliefs within even that one statement. Another example might be that the Bible is the Word of God. And again, some people will believe the Bible literally and take it word for word, completely to be kind of acted upon as it says it in the book. Others would see the Bible as completely without error. Some people would see it as, yes, inspired by God, but actually because it's been written and compiled and interpreted and translated by people, often men, that actually there are some biases in there. There are some kind of natural things that will have occurred as we've filtered and done those processes, which mean that actually we still have to interrogate, understand, engage with the Bible in the current context that we're living in order to be able to apply it as the Word of God to us today. So before I upset too many people and too much, I won't focus on that, because as I say, for me at Riverside, we need something more than our beliefs to hold us together. We need that sense of connection, that sense of love, that sense that God is holding us together as a family. And I suppose to illustrate that, you know, in my family, I don't believe exactly the same as, you know, my wife, Maria, or the kids, or my mum, or my dad. We're all going to have nuances of belief that mean, you know, we don't believe exactly the same. God has, I believe, called us to be a church family that is all age, so 0 to 90 practically. We are diverse. We are a group of people that are brought together, not in uniformity, as in we are all the same. We're all like a bunch of clones, but actually that despite our differences, despite the things that we agree and don't agree on, actually the love that holds us together is stronger than the beliefs that maybe separate us. And this, of course, was a prayer that Jesus made in John chapter 17 for us. One of, you know, his last real words to us before the unfolding of the crucifixion was that he prayed that his disciples, but not only his disciples, those who followed on from his disciples, would be one and would be united. So you can read that in John 17, verse 20 to 23. So I suppose other places that we might find differences of belief in society would be things like, at the moment, obviously Israel, Palestine, asylum seekers is quite an emotive subject. Brexit always divides. And it's something that the world seems to do very well, in that they seem to divide us. You put a statement out on social media and you can very often get bombarded from both sides on this. And I think in the church we have to find a better way of doing this. We have to show a better example. And that example has been touched on the last couple of weeks in the words from John chapter 13 and verse 35, where it says, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And so this is a clear opportunity for us, where we have differences, to actually show love, to show kindness, acceptance and understanding, which will stand in stark contrast to the usual approach that people get maybe on social media or in other places. So, as I mentioned, another reason for for saying we don't need to believe the same, is that we're a really wonderfully diverse group of people in Riverside, even just in terms of age. So, as I say, 0 to 90, which is an amazing encouragement, but actually not something to be taken for granted. If you visit other churches and other places, very often you'll see that there are gaps in those age groups, or maybe most of the people are older with a 1 or 2 younger. We've got a real mix of people, and we are so blessed to have that, and we need to value it, be grateful for it, and continue to work to hold that sense of unity together across those ages. And of course, we're all on different journeys, aren't we? So even within that, even if my experience is similar to yours, I'm a different person to you. So all of that's going to go into the mix of my understanding and learning and experience of life being different, and therefore my beliefs. And so the key question maybe to ask ourselves is, are we growing in our beliefs? So rather than what do we believe and fixating that as a fixed point in time, what is, how are we growing in our beliefs, and what helps us to grow? And so just a quick reminder that as leaders in Riverside, we are trying to create that environment to grow, that greenhouse effect, if you like, that thriving soil where you can put yourself if you feel like you belong to Riverside, and you can grow in that. So that's why our values are to encourage everybody to lead a God-focused, well-balanced life, to enable humble and authentic confidence in God's Spirit to lead us, and to empower everyone to follow Jesus' example in their life, so whatever that means in their circumstances. So that's the soil for which we grow in. But there are 2 particular ways that we can maybe help ourselves to grow. One of them is action. And there's a lot of parts of the Bible. 1 John 3 verse 18 says this: "Dear children, let us love not just with words and tongue, but with actions and in truth." And in the book of James chapter 2 and verse 14, there's a whole section on not being just hearers of the word, but doers also, putting things into practice, actions as well as words. And of course, in Matthew 25, the parable of the sheep and the goats, the difference between the sheep and the goats wasn't necessarily what they believed, it was what they did. So did they clothe the person who was naked? Did they visit the person in prison? Did they feed the person who was hungry? That's the difference, was through the actions. And so we all need to be active in our faith, because that's what helps our faith to grow and our beliefs to grow. That can be in church, that can be serving within different groups that the church runs and that serve our community. It can be in our jobs, in our families. It can be anywhere really, wherever God has put us. And in my experience, what God does is he takes our unique strengths and gifts that he's given us. He takes our unique personality that he has created us with, and he takes our kind of passion and interest areas and he molds those together to say, this is the place that I want you to serve. So for example, for me, being Burton Albion chaplain, if I hated sport and hated football, that probably wouldn't be the easiest role for me. But because I love that, then actually it's a great environment for me to be able to be myself, to be pastoral, to care for people, to listen to people, to support and advise and direct people in that setting where I'm enjoying myself because it's a sporting environment. So that's action, and then uh, the other way we can grow is through contemplation. So contemplation is more than prayer. It's more than studying the Bible. It's described by a guy called Richard Rohr, who I read quite a lot of, who also stretches me and pulls me out of my comfort zone. It's not like I agree with everything he says. He really does stretch me. But he says contemplation is a way of listening with the heart, with the whole heart, not relying entirely on the head. It is a prayerful letting go of our sense of control and choosing to cooperate with God and God's work in the world. So it might involve study. Some of us read, Bible readings or other books, podcasts, if you prefer listening, to reading. There's stuff like home groups and Life Rock that you can get involved in. But I would just encourage you not just to hang with those people that you agree with. Listen to those people that might challenge you a bit, might have a differing view. Talk about stuff, but in a mature way, not in a kind of an aggressive kind of wanting to change somebody else, but listen, really listen, and try and learn through every circumstance. Don't forget, we're also doing the series in the summer where we're looking at the Bible and we're looking at how we can get more out of it and how we can engage with it better. Prayer again, we're doing the prayer course after Easter. So another opportunity there for us to explore and engage with the Lord's Prayer and understand how it can help us as a pattern and a way of developing our prayer life. That's all going to be really important. But it's action and contemplation, not one or the other. And most of us will have a bias towards one or the other. I know probably my preference is to go and do something rather than to sit down and pray about it. Other people will be, I'm going to go pray about that, and be less willing to step out and act on it. There's no rights or wrongs. It's a both and. They need to be held in tension, and both can really help us to grow. And I came across this little term this week in my reading, which was beyond Christianity, actually. It was in mystic Judaism, where they have a concept called tikkun olam, and that means participating in the mending or repairing of the world. And the way that is worked out is through two other words, chesed, which are acts of loving kindness, and tzedakah, which are acts of generosity, hospitality, and charity. It kind of means that we get involved with God just through those small acts, and contribute, along with millions of other people who are also doing that, into mending and repairing the world, connecting things back together. So hopefully those concepts will help you to put some of this stuff into practice. So just kind of coming to conclusions, some simple takeaways perhaps. Many of you will remember the wristbands you used to get with the phrase, what would Jesus do on them? And it's a great question, and it really helped to bring kind of the decisions and the choices element of our lives right into a kind of a prayerful space. So, thinking about what would Jesus do in this circumstance or that circumstance, or is really, really important. There's another question that I think goes along with that, not necessarily marketable through wristbands, but how would Jesus do that? And again, this is about moving beyond doing the right thing and the right beliefs. It's about doing things in the right way. So Tim, when he was introducing our series Back to Basics, focused on Matthew 22 verse 37. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is this: love your neighbour as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And so it's all about loving, I think in 1 John it talks about, let me give you a new command, love one another in the same way I have loved you, you love one another. This is how everyone will recognize you are my disciples, when they see the love you have for each other. So yeah, that's what's going to hold us together. That needs to be the motivation for the decisions and the actions that we take in light of the fact that of our beliefs. So our beliefs kind of have to line up with all those other things. So maybe just a few questions to reflect on. How can I make my first thought be, what would Jesus do in any and every situation I face? What is God currently asking me to do to grow in my beliefs and join him in mending the world? And how can I keep my intentions and my motives aligned to how Jesus would do that? I hope this will replace the gap that from the IT issues from the preach. I know it's not quite the same, but hopefully for those of you who missed it, you won't know any different. And for those of you that are revisiting, it will be a useful reminder. Take care. God bless. Riverside Family.